Heartwarming discovery. Undercover Black CEO reveals incredible truth behind Janitor's tears. Malik wiped the sweat from his brow, gazing out over the empty hallways of the high school where he worked as a janitor. The rumble of laughter and chatter had faded, leaving a quiet whisper in the air. Every day was the same grind, but deep inside him burned a fierce love for his daughter, Aisha, and the hope that their lives could be different. Little did he know that today would reveal both hardship and transformation. As he swept the floors, he noticed a group of students gathered around the old cafeteria table, their heads bent low over books. He approached them, heart swelling with pride as he listened to their animated discussions. Malik loved these kids. They reminded him so much of Aisha, especially when they fought through challenges just like she did. He often shared his lunch with them, providing slices of laughter alongside his sandwiches. One boy looked up, eyes wide. "Mr. Malik, why do you always help us? You don't have to." He smiled, his heart warmed by the question. "Because you all matter. Your future matters. I know how tough it can be, and if I can lend a hand, I will." Across town, Brandon, the new CEO of the company that managed the school, prepared to step out of his high-powered role and into the world beneath. He had been inspired to act, having grown up in a similar neighborhood, but he'd long since arrived at a place where challenges seemed distant. It was time to understand the struggles again, to see what made the heart of this school tick. He transformed into Malik, wearing the same work uniform, fully aware that this would change everything. As Brandon witnessed the toil Malik put into his daily grind, he recognized the spirit of resilience glowing under each smile and pat on the back he saw Malik give to students. The man never took a moment for himself. The connection grew deeper. He felt Malik's weight, the fear of not providing enough for his daughter, Aisha. At home, however, Aisha was unraveling under her father's relentless love. The pressure of her father's sacrifices began to crush her dreams into dust. One afternoon, as she threw her textbooks to the floor in frustration, tears streamed down her face. "I can't do this, Dad. You're working so hard, but I'm failing. I'm letting you down." Malik knelt beside her, his heart breaking. "You could never let me down, Aisha. We're in this together. Your dreams are worth fighting for." He felt the tightness in his chest, unsure if it was heartbreak or the fear of failure that gnawed at him. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the week rolled on, the community event loomed ever closer, and Malik found himself nominated for recognition for his work. The thought made him uneasy. He never wanted the spotlight, he just wanted to quietly serve. A pulse of anxiety coursed through him, wondering if receiving recognition might alter how Aisha saw him. Sinking deeper into thought, he battled with sharing this aspect of himself, and his yearning for recognition wrestled with his deep-seated beliefs about humility. At the event, families gathered with warmth, each one touched by Malik's kindness. Brandon's heart ached with the stories he had uncovered, revealing the gap between their worlds. The crowd buzzed with excitement, unaware of the silent conflict brewing within Malik. He could feel the eyes of his community waiting, a collective breath held in anticipation for him to take the stage. Just as he swallowed the lump in his throat and prepared to step forward, an unexpected incident shattered the joyful atmosphere, shaking him to his core. What choice would he make in this moment? Embrace the honor and risk everything, or retreat back into the shadows? With an earnest heart, Malik stood poised on the brink of a decision that might change everything. Malik's pulse raced as he stepped closer to the podium, the eyes of the community boring into him like arrows in his back. The anticipation was electric, crackling with hope and expectation, but also deafening in its pressure. He could sense the smiles and the supportive murmurs, yet a weight hung heavy in the air. For a moment, he felt frozen in time. What if this recognition altered the very fabric of who he was in Aisha's eyes? What if she felt he was abandoning the humble life they had carved out together? Across the room, Aisha stood with a few friends, her heart trembling. She admired the children crowding around Malik, leaning into his warmth as he shared laughter and stories. But a gnawing worry clawed at her insides. Could her father truly be celebrated for simply doing what he believed every decent person should do? Was this recognition meant to lift him up or tear him away? Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the back of the hall. A young girl, tears streaming down her cheeks, rushed in, her wild eyes searching for someone, a friend, a protector. Malik's attention snapped toward her, the distraction breaking his hesitation. She was one of the students he often checked in on, the one who taught him about kindness through her bright spirit. "Mr. Malik!" she cried, her voice cracking. "My mom, she's not home. I can't find her." In an instant, the struggling boy became a father again. Malik stepped down from the podium, heart racing, his instincts taking over. This was not about honors or applause, this was about family. He approached the girl, kneeling down so their eyes met. "We'll find her, I promise. Let us get everyone to help, okay?" Aisha watched, mesmerized as her father's calm assurance enveloped the girl like a protective shield. Those tears flowed freely, but next to Malik, she found comfort. The crowd shifted, voices murmuring, and children stood up as if drawn by a magnet. Together, they formed a search party, a tapestry of youth and community stepping up to face fear head-on. Brandon stood, frozen for a moment before joining them, feeling a rush of admiration for Malik. The scene was powerful, a mosaic of hope and compassion weaving through generations and backgrounds. This was the heart of the mission. Moments of vulnerability could ignite a fire that connected people, and suddenly, he started to see more than just a janitor. He saw a man, a heart, a warrior in disguise. Meanwhile, Malik led the search with his head held high, invigorated by a sense of purpose deeper than any award. But in that whirlwind of concern and camaraderie, a thought nagged at him. Was Aisha watching him not just as a father, but as a man who could uplift others? As they combed through the school grounds, Aisha suddenly grabbed his arm. "Dad, I see her!" she shouted, pointing toward a woman in the distance. Relief flooded Malik's heart like a wave crashing onto the shore. They hurried over, the community closing in around them, hearts collectively holding their breath. When they finally reached the woman, a silence enveloped them all, a moment suspended in time. Could this be the breakthrough Malik needed, or merely another reminder of the struggles that shadowed his life? Would Aisha finally understand the importance of resilience, of hope amidst hardship? With a tight grip on Aisha's hand, Malik stepped forward, and in that heartbeat, he recognized this was where hope thrived. But the next moment held power beyond their understanding. As the woman turned, the revelation that would shape their lives unfolded just as Malik had feared. Malik's breath caught in his throat. The woman turned slowly, and her face contorted into a mask of shock as she laid eyes on the searching girl. Recognition flickered in her eyes, shimmering like a long-lost memory surfacing to the present. The girl rushed toward her, throwing her arms around her mother, a flurry of tears and muffled sobs filling the air. "Mom! I thought I lost you!" she cried, voice trembling with relief. The crowd exhaled collectively, a wave of warmth and joy rippling through the hearts assembled. Malik felt the tension dissolve, replaced by a deep-seated joy that permeated all of them. Yet, beneath that relief lingered an undercurrent of tension, for he sensed that this encounter wasn't over. As the emotional reunion unfolded, Aisha stood beside her father, her eyes wide. A moment of pure connection glazed over her face, but it was the moment that immediately followed that made Malik's heart race again. The mother, still holding her daughter tightly, glanced up at Malik. A flicker of recognition passed between them, a spark that ignited a whole new set of questions in Malik's mind. "Mr. Malik," she said, her voice steady despite the earlier storm of emotion. "You're the one who helped my daughter at school, aren't you?" The recognition was like a spotlight shining on Malik, and he felt the weight of the room shift once more. Was this how Aisha would see him? Or would it throw his humble efforts into stark contrast with the burgeoning admiration that was now so visible? Yes, Malik replied softly, kneeling at a respectful distance from the girl and her mother, I'm just glad you're both here. We were so worried I didn't even realize she had slipped away. Thank you for being her champion today, the woman said, her voice filled with earnest gratitude. Aisha watched intently, feeling a swirl of emotions: pride, fear, confusion. Could she really take pride in a father who was suddenly larger than life? Did he really want this recognition? Malik's heart clenched, for he could see that the admiration in the crowd was a double-edged sword. Brandon stepped forward, joining Malik. We all felt it was our duty. This community pulls together when it really matters. He turned to Malik. But you? You're more than just someone who looks after the kids. You do it with heart. That's what drew us all in. Malik looked at Brandon, appreciating the warmth of his words, but the implications clenched at his gut. Was this truly what Aisha wanted to see? As the crowd echoed their approval, Malik caught Aisha's gaze, her head tilted slightly as if trying to piece together this new puzzle of who her father really was. He couldn't shake the fear of losing that special bond between them. Then Malik heard a whistle pierce through the lingering applause, the rich sound of a police siren. Suddenly, a police cruiser pulled into the lot, lights flashing. A shift in atmosphere rippled through the crowd. Questions darted like fireflies. What now? Aisha stiffened beside Malik. What is going on? She shot him a look that mixed worry and confusion. I don't know, Malik admitted, feeling unease settle in the pit of his stomach. This was not part of the plan. As officers began speaking to the assembled crowd, Malik felt the urgency of the moment's shift. Recognition had stirred questions from the heart, and now reality threatened to dampen that spark. But just as he turned to Aisha, she stepped forward, her voice steady, full of determination. Dad, we need to hear what they're saying, she insisted, pulling him toward the unfolding scene. Malik couldn't dismiss the knot of dread tightening in his chest. Would this revelation bring them closer together or pull them apart forever? As they moved through the crowd, he couldn't shake the feeling that the answers they were about to face could change everything, and as the officer raised their voice, the whole community listened, eager and apprehensive. What would they uncover now? The officer stood on the raised platform, his expression serious as he scanned the crowd. The applause faded to an anxious murmur, hearts beating faster. Malik felt Aisha press closer to him, her fingers tightly clutching his jacket. Thank you all for gathering here today, the officer began, voice firm. We've been investigating a series of incidents in the area, and we believe we have some important information to share with you. Malik's pulse quickened. He could feel Aisha's warmth beside him, yet the heaviness in the air sent a chill down his spine. There was a tension here, a promise of revelation or maybe even chaos. We have reports of suspicious activities nearby, a rise in thefts and other disturbances, the officer continued, looking around. However, we have also received several tips regarding a man who has been working undercover to help our community. A man who is, and I must stress this, dedicated to making this neighborhood better. A murmur rolled through the crowd again, questions playing out on their faces. Who was this man? Malik's heart raced. Aisha's grip tightened. Earlier today, we received a call about a suspect in the area. It appears he'd been lurking around here for days, the officer said, his brow now creased with worry. We believe it might have some connection to the missing children. So, we're asking everyone to stay alert. Malik's thoughts raced. Missing children? He exchanged a quick glance with Aisha, who looked back at him, eyes wide and scared. What does this have to do with us? She whispered, not breaking her gaze from the officer. Right now, the officer continued, we're doing everything we can to ensure your safety. The sound of a rustling crowd sparked Malik's attention. A man in a hoodie suddenly appeared at the edge of the crowd, his face hidden in the shadows. Something about him felt off, sending a fresh wave of anxiety through Malik. He stepped instinctively closer to Aisha, shielding her from the thrumming uncertainty, the officer spotted the figure and his expression tightened. "Sir, do you have any identification?" he called out, voice booming. The man shifted, backing away into the shadows. Without a word, he turned abruptly and disappeared into an alleyway, leaving behind a whisper of confusion and fear. "Someone needs to go after him." Aisha's voice rose above the din, desperate and urgent. Malik instinctively stepped forward, wanting to assure her that everything was under control. But inside, a storm was brewing. The flicker of fear in his daughter's eyes mirrored his own. They had fought so hard to build trust, to connect amidst chaos, and now it felt like threads were unraveling around them. "I'll go," Brandon said, determination etched across his face. He made his way toward the officer, firm in his stance. "I'll help find him. You stay here, make sure everyone is accounted for." Malik nodded, but doubt knotted his stomach. He could sense the fear rising, and as Brandon moved to follow the mysterious figure, a thought struck him. What if the truth that lay hidden was more complicated than they ever expected? What if their pursuit of one mystery would lead to another, larger and more frightening truth? As the officer reassured the crowd, Malik turned back to Aisha, desperation filling his voice. "We'll get through this, I promise," he said, hoping to quell her fear. But the unanswered questions melted into the tense atmosphere. Just then, a sound rang out, a scream echoed in the distance, a stark reminder of the weight they all carried. The ground felt shaky beneath Malik's feet. They were on the brink of an unraveling, and he could only wonder, what would they uncover when the dust settled? Would it bring them closer together or tear them apart altogether? The crowd stirred restlessly, the scream still hanging in the air like a haunting melody. Malik's heart hammered in his chest, a primal response to the chaos unfolding around him. Aisha's fingers twitched nervously against his jacket, and he knew he had to do something to be strong for her. "Stay close," he said softly, trying to anchor her amidst the turmoil. They turned their attention back to the officer, who had started to issue commands. "Everyone, please return to your homes. We need to ensure your safety. This area isn't secure," he said, his voice rising above the chatter, urgency weaving through his tone. "We'll move to find the suspicious individual and investigate the scream." Malik felt the weight of the crowd pressing down on him, the mixture of fear and uncertainty. He watched as Brandon dashed toward the alley, determination in his stride. "Be careful," Malik muttered under his breath, the instinct to protect clawing at him. Aisha's eyes widened further as the reality settled in. "Dad, what do we do? What if something happens to him?" Her voice trembled, and in that moment, Malik recognized the depth of his daughter's fear. It mirrored his own. "We can't just stand here," he replied, glancing around to catch glimpses of familiar faces distorted by concern. We should help. We can't just let him go alone." Before he could think through the consequences, he took Aisha's hand firmly. "We're going with him." He could almost hear the whispers of disapproval from others around them, but the notion that they might already be in danger pushed them forward. They needed answers, and the only way forward was together. As they approached the alley, the shadows felt thicker, darker. The faint smell of damp concrete filled the air, mixing with a hint of something metallic that sent a shiver down Malik's spine. He exchanged a quick look with Aisha. "Stay close. Do what I say," he urged, squeezing her hand tighter. They ventured into the alley, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the walls. "Brandon!" Malik called, his voice echoing into the void. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through him, heightening his senses. The alley felt alive, thrumming with uncertainty. "Over here." Brandon's voice suddenly pierced the silence, and they rushed toward the sound. Malik's heart leapt as he saw Brandon standing by what appeared to be a beaten-up old door, half hidden by shadows. "What did you find?" Malik asked, trying to keep the tremor from his voice. Brandon glanced back at them, his expression tight. I think I saw him go inside." "He was definitely trying to hide something," he replied, pointing to the door. "Okay, we need to move. We can't let him get away." But we have to be careful, Malik cautioned. Aisha's grip tightened around his hand, trembling slightly. Are you sure we should go in there, Dad? She whispered. There was a deep sense of foreboding in her eyes. Malik hesitated, the weight of his decision weighing heavily on his shoulders. He felt the coolness of the alley contrasted sharply with the fire of determination inside him. They had to uncover the truth, but at what risk? Whatever happens, we'll do it together, he assured her, though he wasn't entirely sure of what awaited them inside. As they pushed the door open, a chilling wind swept through, carrying murmurs of a truth yet to be unveiled. What would they discover in the darkness that lurked beyond the threshold? Would it lead to salvation or deeper despair? Malik inhaled sharply, stepping into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. The air changed as Malik stepped into the dimly lit room, an eerie stillness settling around them. The door creaked loudly as he pushed it fully open, revealing a narrow hallway cloaked in shadows. The smell of dampness was stronger here, mingling with the scent of dust that had settled like a blanket over everything. Aisha hesitated at the threshold, her wide eyes reflecting a cocktail of fear and curiosity. Stick together, Malik whispered, trying to steady his voice. His heart raced, every instinct telling him to be cautious. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, and yet, the urge to protect Brandon pulled him deeper into the darkness. As they crept down the hallway, a faint light flickered from another room at the end. The unsettling sounds of shifting metal came from within. Each step felt heavier, his mind racing with questions. What had Brandon seen? Who were they chasing? They reached an open door at the end, and Malik peered inside. The scene before them was chaotic. Boxes were strewn about, and in the center of the mess stood a figure, back turned, rummaging through a pile of papers. The glow of a single light bulb illuminated his face enough to reveal the tension etched into his features. Who are you? Malik called out, his voice breaking the oppressive silence. The startled figure spun around, eyes filled with panic. But it wasn't the face of a stranger. Malik's breath caught. Jake. Jake, a local handyman known for his easy smile, stood frozen. I didn't mean to scare anyone. His hands trembled as he dropped the papers. I didn't want anyone to find out what? Malik pressed, the urgency in his voice rising. Jake glanced nervously back toward the hallway, his gaze darting to Aisha. Please, you have to understand. I'm trying to protect someone. From what? Aisha stepped closer, her curiosity overcoming her fear. Jake's shoulders slumped like a deflated balloon. There's something happening in this neighborhood. Something dangerous. He paused, taking a breath, trying to gather courage. I was just trying to keep it quiet. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Malik felt a chill. The fear in Jake's voice was palpable, and it resonated with the fear that had been gnawing at him since they heard the scream. What do you mean dangerous? What are you protecting? Before Jake could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the alley outside, causing all three of them to freeze. Malik's heart sank, his instincts screamed at him to find cover. We need to get out of here, he urged. But Aisha stepped forward, her voice firm yet shaky. We can't leave without knowing more. We can't let fear win. Jake bit his lip, torn between urgency and the reality of the situation. I can't talk here, he whispered urgently. There's a room in the back, it's safer. Malik exchanged a look with Aisha, weighing the risk. The world outside felt daunting, but so did the impossible choices they faced within these walls. Okay, he said, steeling himself. Lead the way. But we move fast. As they followed Jake, the footsteps outside continued, growing louder and heading closer. Malik's senses were heightened, the stakes rising with every passing second. They were in the thick of something much bigger than themselves, but could they really unearth the truth without losing everything in the process? With a heavy heart, Malik stepped into the unknown again, just as the door banged open behind them. What awaited them on the other side? Would they uncover the truth or plunge deeper into danger? They rushed into the back room, a cramped space littered with tools and more boxes stacked high, shadows creeping across the walls. The moment they closed the door, Malik's heart raced even faster, the thud of his pulse drowning out the sounds of the world outside. The air was thick with a sense of urgency, the weight of secrets palpable. Jake leaned against the door, keeping a wary eye on the hallway. "You have to promise me you won't tell anyone," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet. I don't want to put anyone in danger." Aisha stepped closer, her expression softening. "Jake, we're not the enemy here. We're trying to help. Just tell us what's going on." Malik shifted his gaze between Aisha and Jake, feeling the intensity of the moment. Every second felt like it could burst, and he could almost hear the ticking clock in his mind amplifying the pressure. Jake took a deep breath, his shoulders dropping slightly as if finally allowing the burden to escape his chest. "It's about the old warehouse down the block," he said, his voice trembling. "Something's been happening there, something illegal. I stumbled upon it while fixing some plumbing, but I didn't mean to. I saw things I shouldn't have seen." "What things?" Malik pressed, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten. He could sense Aisha's anticipation beside him. "People," Jake whispered. "I think they're running, I don't know what exactly, but it felt wrong. There's this whole operation going on, and every night, they gather more and more supplies. It's all hush-hush, and I didn't want anyone in the neighborhood to get dragged into it." "Supplies? What kind of supplies?" Aisha asked, the seriousness in her tone compelling Jake to continue. "Drugs, weapons, I'm not sure." He shook his head as if trying to clear the chaos. "But it's not just that. There are threats, people who don't want anyone to talk." A flicker of fear crossed his eyes. "I was followed home a few nights ago. I thought they would come back for me. That's why I've been hiding out here, trying to gather proof, hoping to report it without getting anyone involved. Your life is in danger, Jake," Malik said, horror creeping into his thoughts. "You can't fight this alone. We need to tell someone. The police, anyone." Jake shook his head. "You don't understand. If they know I spoke to you, they might come after you too. It's all connected. And if they find out about Brandon, I can't even think about that. He has no idea what's going on." "Brandon?" Aisha's voice faltered. "What does he have to do with this?" Malik caught Jake's eyes, a deep sense of urgency washing over him. Jake hesitated. "He's been looking into things too. He might be at risk, and I can't let him get hurt." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, sending a shiver down Malik's spine. The unmistakable sound of footsteps came crashing toward them. Panic ignited in the room, filling the air with desperation. "Quick! We need to hide," Malik urged, scanning the cluttered space for a place to conceal themselves. But as he turned to follow Aisha and Jake's movements, the door handle rattled violently. Could it be too late for them to remain safe? What would happen if they were discovered? The door handle was shaking now, a frantic twist as if whoever was on the other side was desperate to get in. Malik's heart raced, he could almost hear it thumping louder than the footsteps. Aisha grabbed his arm, her grip tight and anxious. "Where?" she whispered, glancing around the room. Her eyes darted to the boxes stacked in the corner, the shadows around them growing even darker. "Behind those boxes," Jake urged, his voice a mix of fear and urgency. Without a second thought, they rushed behind the mountain of clutter, crouching low. They pressed their backs against the cold wall, breathlessly waiting for whatever was about to unfold. The door sprang open, the heavy creak echoing throughout the small space. A figure loomed in the doorway, broad shoulders, a dark jacket pulled tight around his torso, and a face masked by shadows. The intruder peered inside, eyes searching the room with alarming intensity. Malik held his breath, every muscle in his body tense. He felt Aisha shaking beside him, her fear palpable. It was all-consuming. Would they be discovered? The figure stepped forward, his boot crunching on scattered tools and debris. For a moment, it felt like time stretched, making even a heartbeat seem drawn out. The tension was like a thin wire, ready to snap. Jake's hand instinctively found Malik's, squeezing tightly, as if to anchor himself. After a few chilling moments, the intruder turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him as the sound of his footsteps retreated into the hallway. Relief flooded Malik's body instantly, but it was tinged with an underlying sense of dread. They were far from safe. "Did you see his face?" Aisha whispered, her voice trembling. "Who was that?" "Most likely one of them," Jake said, his voice low and tense. "But we can't stay here. It's not just about hiding anymore. We need to figure out what to do next. We can't let this go on." "But what do we do?" Malik asked, anxiety grabbing hold of him. "We can't just walk out, he might be waiting." Jake took a deep breath and composure seemed to wash over him. "We need proof. I might have something in my bag that could help, maybe some photos, notes." He glanced around, calculating their path. "If we can get to it, we could find the right people to help us without anyone knowing." "Let us go," Aisha said, a new determination lighting her eyes. They peeked out from behind the boxes, ensuring the coast was clear. Malik led the way, the danger they faced sending adrenaline coursing through his veins. With every step back toward the door, the atmosphere thickened with uncertainty. They moved towards Jake's bag, which lay awkwardly along the edge of the wall, but as they got closer, a sound stopped them cold. A soft, persistent noise began to echo in the hallway, the unmistakable click of a lock. "Someone is securing the exits," Jake said, panic creeping in again. "We need to go now." Just then, the door they had just come through swung open again, and a figure reappeared. This time, he wasn't alone. Two more figures followed, their faces masked and eyes scanning the room with an all-too-familiar intensity. Malik's heart sank, fear clawing at his insides. "What now?" he whispered to Aisha, their eyes wide with terror. "Run!" Jake shouted as they dashed back to their hiding spot just as the intruders entered. It was a race against time, and the shadows felt sharper, closer. Each heartbeat pulsed with urgency, a reminder that their lives depended on what happened next. Would their instincts guide them, or was it too late? The fear of what was to come wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. As they squeezed back into the shadows, the weight of dread sat heavy on Malik's chest. The room felt as if it were shrinking, the walls closing in with each heavy breath. Jake's heart was pounding like a drum, and Aisha was pressing herself against him, seeking comfort in the shared fear. The intruders entered, their voices low and menacing, discussing something that sounded far too personal, far too dangerous. "Check everywhere," one of them commanded. "They have to be here." Malik's pulse quickened at the word "they." Were they talking about them? Peering through the narrow space between the boxes, Malik could see the figures scanning the room. One of them moved closer, boots thudding ominously on the wooden floor. Malik could almost feel the weight of the man's gaze searching for them. Time seemed to stretch, every second dragging out the tension until he could hardly breathe. "We have to get to my bag," Jake whispered urgently. "It's our only chance." "But they're right there." Aisha whispered back, her eyes wide. She looked back at Malik, fear painting her features. "What if they find us?" As the intruder edged nearer, Malik felt a surge of desperation. They couldn't stay hidden forever. With an unexpected burst of courage, he edged out of their cramped position, silently gesturing for Jake and Aisha to follow. With a swift glance at Jake that conveyed both fear and trust, they moved. They crept towards the farthest edge of the room, where they hoped the shadows would be enough to shield them. Each step felt like a deliberate defiance against danger, a silent prayer that they would remain unseen. Suddenly, one of the intruders turned sharply, his eyes locking onto their hiding spot. "There!" he shouted, charging toward them. Panic exploded in Malik's chest, igniting his legs into action. "Run!" Jake screamed, pushing forward like a comet bursting through the night sky. They bolted for the door, adrenaline propelling them, their breaths echoing in their ears like a war drum. Malik didn't look back. In that moment, only forward mattered. They raced through the doorway, skidding to a halt in the hallway. The sudden rush of fresh air was almost euphoric, but it quickly turned into a desperate search for an escape. "Which way?" Malik gasped, glancing left and right. The hallway twisted and turned. Each direction seemed as uncertain as the last. "Left!" Aisha yelled, her instincts kicking in. "We need to find a way out." As they turned, they stumbled upon a dark staircase spiraling down into the unknown. Without hesitation, they rushed down the steps, the clatter of their footsteps echoing off the walls like a haunting chorus. They reached the bottom, and the sight was shocking: a wide, dimly lit corridor with multiple doors. It felt like entering a maze built for those trying to escape. Malik's mind raced. Where would they find safety? Where could they hide from the intruders who hunted them? A door caught his eye farther down the hall, slightly ajar with a sliver of light spilling through. Hope flickered in Malik's chest. "In there!" he shouted, steering them towards it. They dashed through the door, slamming it shut behind them. Breathing heavily, they leaned against it, desperate to catch their breath. In the dim light, surrounded by dusty shelves lined with old equipment, they looked at each other, realization sinking in. They were still alive, still together, but they needed a plan. Think, Jake murmured, pacing the room. "We can't just keep running. We need a way to fight back." Aisha's brow furrowed, determination resurfacing. "We need to find out what they're hiding. We need a way to expose them." Malik nodded, his heart still racing, but a glimmer of resolve ignited within him. "Let us start looking. There has to be something here we can use." As they began to search the space, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. But this time, they weren't the feet of their pursuers. A rustling behind a curtain caught Malik's attention. "Is someone there?" he whispered, stepping closer, his heart racing anew. What lay beyond that curtain could lead them toward the truth or deeper into danger. Would this lead them to freedom or their worst nightmare? As Malik pulled the curtain aside with hesitant fingers, he was met with the sight of an elderly woman sitting beneath a dim light. Her frail frame was hunched over a table covered in papers, her gaze shifting upward in surprise. The woman's eyes sparkled with unexpected wisdom, and instead of fear, she greeted them with warmth. "Who are you?" she asked gently, her voice a soothing balm to their frayed nerves. "I'm Malik," he stammered, still catching his breath. Aisha and Jake held back slightly, glancing at one another before edging closer. "We're looking for answers. We need to stop something dangerous going on in this neighborhood." The woman nodded knowingly. "You're not the first to come here seeking the truth." Her deep-set eyes seemed to pierce through the chaos surrounding them. "This warehouse hides many secrets, but leverage lies in knowledge. What do you know?" Aisha asked, the fire of determination burning bright in her heart. She stepped forward, ready to absorb every word. "I've seen the comings and goings of unsavory characters. They're using this place to conceal their operations. You've stumbled into a ruthless web, but with truth comes power." She gestured toward the scattered papers. "There's proof of everything." Malik's heart pounded, 100 thoughts colliding at once. "Can we use it to expose them?" "Yes," the woman replied. "But they will come looking. You must be swift and clever." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed ominously from the hallway. Malik's instincts kicked in once more. "We need to hide this information. Can you keep it safe?" The old woman nodded, as if she understood the urgency etched on their faces. "I have ways of reaching the authorities without attracting attention. Just leave me what you find. I will ensure it gets to the right people." Malik felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had found an ally in a sea of uncertainty. As they rifled through the papers, the adrenaline surged, and every sense sharpened. Pictures of the warehouse, lists of supplies, names, and dates flashed before him. "This is it," Jake exclaimed, as he stumbled upon a document that detailed shipments scheduled for that very night. "Let us go." Malik felt hope ignite inside him, overpowering the fear. They were no longer just running scared, they had the tools to change their fate. Suddenly, the thunder of footsteps rang louder outside, and Malik's heart raced. "Now!" he shouted. They gathered the papers, mindful of the ticking clock, and prepared to slip out of the room. Through the back exit, the woman whispered. "There's a door that leads to an alley behind the warehouse. Hurry." As they raced toward the door she indicated, Malik felt Aisha's hand clasp his tighter, an unspoken bond formed through shared desperation and purpose. They stepped into the dark corridor, making their way toward the exit, hearts pounding in sync. "Keep moving," Malik urged, his voice low but urgent. They reached the back door, the sound of shouting now echoing behind them. The intruders were on their trail, and there was no time to waste. With one final glance back at their ally, they bolted through the door and into the alleyway. The night air hit them like a wave, cool and invigorating, and they took off running, not stopping until they reached the safety of the main street. Malik glanced at Aisha and Jake, their faces illuminated by the streetlight's glow, reflecting determination and relief. They had gathered intel that could unravel the entire operation. "We need to contact the police," Malik said, breathing heavily. "They can't ignore this." But as Malik pulled out his phone, a thought crossed his mind. Would they trust him, the janitor known for sweeping floors, or would he be seen simply as a worried father? "I can call Brandon," Jake offered. "He has the resources to turn this into something they can't ignore." "Yes," Aisha encouraged, her face lit with hope. "Let us get him involved." Jake wasted no time dialing Brandon. "It's urgent," he said, urgency threading through his voice. "We found something big, and you need to hear this." Moments felt like hours as they paced the sidewalk, hearts beating rapidly. Then, as if the universe had conspired in their favor, Jake's phone buzzed. It was Brandon. "I'm in the parking lot. Where are you?" In a flurry of relief and renewed energy, they rushed toward his car. When they saw him standing there, a blend of concern and admiration washed over his face. "You guys okay?" he asked, his expression sharp with protective urgency. "Not yet, but we've discovered something that could change everything," Malik shared as they piled into the car. They wasted no time explaining everything, and with every word, Malik could see Brandon's expression shift from concern to disbelief, and finally, to resolve. "Let us get the police involved. We will protect this community," Brandon declared, his voice steady. With that, hope spread through the group like wildfire. They had faced shadow and uncertainty together, forging an unbreakable bond. They would fight for their community, and in doing so, would understand something profound. They were not just individual pieces, but a tapestry woven together, and as they drove into the night, the flickering lights of the city in front of them, Malik felt a lightness he hadn't known in years. He turned to Aisha, a radiant smile lighting his face. "Together, we'll change the world." And for the first time, she returned his smile full of light, filled with dreams. Together, they were stronger. Now, don't you forget this incredible journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. I want to hear your reactions. Comment below with your feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to back this channel up. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting through these actions.